Both North and South Carolina recently were inundated with historic amounts of rain, leading to tragic flooding that's causing quite a bit of damage to both of those states. And you might wonder when you hear that it's the worst rain in 1,000 years, well, how do you explain that? Well, you don't explain it with your science and your thinking. No, Michelle Bachmann explains it with her deep personal connection to God. She posted this recently: U.S. turns its back on Israel, disasters following. Showing pictures, 22 million Americans under flood watch. And it's all because God wanted to flood us because we turned our back on Israel. Now, I'm going to get back to that in just a second, but first I want to talk about the actual facts. Have we turned our back on Israel? Well, it's interesting that Michelle Bachmann says that we do, because Benjamin Netanyahu recently spoke at the General Assembly of the UN, and he actually talked quite a bit about America and Israel's relationship with America in that, saying that he appreciates the special relationship that Israel and America have always had, from Harry Truman to Barack Obama. And he said that he specifically appreciates the friendship of Barack Obama, and then he went on to list a ton of different ways that Barack Obama has helped him, from things involving the military to environmentalism and dealing with forest fires. And then he implied that there are other things that he can't mention specifically, but that he appreciates all that Barack Obama has done for him. But what would he know? He's just the leader of the country. So she's absolutely lying when she says that that if there was flooding, and if God could cause flooding, that it would be due to us turning our back on Israel, because we clearly haven't. But imagine now, this is why I want to talk about this. Imagine how amazing it must be, how fun it must be, how comforting it must be to live in a world where anything can be the cause of anything, and there doesn't have to be any rational relationship between the one and the two. Well, you know, clearly my relationship was ruined because I put the wrong dressing on my salad. She never saw it or anything, but that started. God wasn't happy about that. He said, no, you should have gone with the ranch. How dare you go with the raspberry vinaigrette? You son of a bitch, you sinner. The idea that if we had turned our back on Israel, that God would be angry, and so he'd flood North and South Carolina. By the way, 22 million Americans affected by the flooding, many of them Republicans, many of them conservatives, many of them Michelle Bachmann supporters, perhaps Israel supporters. Doesn't make sense. God works in mysterious ways, and when we say mysterious, we means that nobody can fucking understand why he'd work that way. Not even someone as infinitely wise as God could work that out. But God, just imagine day to day never having to actually think through why things happen, or requiring evidence for the things that you believe. Yeah, just, okay, so what's something bad that happened recently? Bernie Sanders isn't doing as well in the polls now that Joe Biden's being included in a lot of them. You know why Joe Biden's being included in a lot of them? Because of Planned Parenthood about to be defunded. I don't know. I'm like trying to imitate insanity, and it's difficult. But yeah, just imagine that, like, oh man, my favorite football team didn't do that well. That's because you ran over that raccoon. Just imagine how comforting. But unfortunately, we don't get to live like that. We don't get to live like Michelle Bachmann. No, we have to actually think about the things that happen and why they might have happened, how to avoid them happening perhaps in the future. Find logical causal connections between things. But it would be so much simpler to not do that. This is Michelle Bachmann, by the way. This was an elected official to the U.S. government who believes that magic is the cause of world events, that storms are created by people raising conch shells into the air and then beseeching Neptune to affect the weather. This is honestly how she goes about her day. That's scary, but that's not the scariest thing. The scariest thing is that there are a hell of a lot of other Americans who feel the exact same way.